Hello, everybody. How you doing? Joined by Tom Jordan right now. Many of you probably know him, or you know the voice at least. He has a uh, storied career in broadcasting. Great to see you, sir.
Good to see you, Dave. And I'm really congratulations on your program. You're rocking it in the digital space. And I'm just amazed at how, I know you've been in television news for many years and then you're independent journalism. And I think it's phenomenal what you're doing. The work is great. And I think you deserve all the following that you're getting. And I just hope it continues to just grow and grow and grow year by year.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And, I admire you and your work. And, we've known each other for a while and I share your stuff out. Before I get going now, you are also independent. Where can people find you?
Thank you. It's Tom Jordan Live. You can just, if you're curious on which platforms we're on, just go to tomjordanlive.com and that shows you we're on YouTube, we're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, pretty much wherever you get your podcast. But that's where we are. And we're doing it much like you are with, on camera presentations. But you have the option to listen or you can watch either way. So, yeah, tomjordanlive.com. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Did you start out in television?
I did, yeah. So I was a TV news anchor like you and a reporter for most of my career. And I was out on the west side of the country, the left side of the country in San Diego. And I had my dream job as a kid wanting to grow up and one day be getting in the news industry. And I wasn't sure when I was a youngster if it was going to be print or radio or television or whatnot. But I got into television news to start off and reporter, news anchor. First job was a tiny market in Kennewick, Washington, and had to do everything, including sports and weather and shoot your own stuff. But
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that was most of my career. And in San Diego, which I loved my job, and one of the most difficult career decisions I had to make was to leave that job in order to leave California because my wife and I made a decision that we want to raise our kids in the best possible place we could. And, this is where I realized as an adult that policy matters. It actually does directly affect individuals, and
Yeah.
politics is kind of a real thing. It doesn't, people will, so I used to believe, it doesn't matter who's a president, doesn't matter who's governor, it doesn't have any impact on your life because we're all protected by the institution. No, 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 you're not. California was a great example of it. We had a great job, my dream job, and I
Yeah.
couldn't afford to live in San Diego and raise kids. So we had to get out, and we're glad we did.
Yeah.
And we came to Michigan, and then Michigan suddenly turned a sharp left trajectory as well and started following suit. And Michigan became, Dave, worse off politically and the impacts and the consequences of these policy decisions worse than California was when I left California. We're talking about the educational system here, the cost of living going up, and these crazy far left policies that were being implemented. It was worse than California just, 10, 12 years ago.
That's saying a lot.
Yeah.
We're kind of on the same path. My goal was to be anchoring in Detroit or New York or LA or something. I got married, had two kids. I started to realize that wasn't as important, more about family. And I left Pittsburgh at the NBC affiliate, a bigger market 25 or something like that. So moved back to Michigan, worked at a smaller market, and I just saw the deterioration of journalism. I'm 49 years old. When I first started, it was about holding all government accountable, all politicians. And I first realized I needed to leave when I would get in trouble for holding people accountable. A lot of the bosses at the TV station did not like me going after certain people. And then I realized what's going on. So did you see also a change as you got older? You worked in the media, there was a change happening.
Yes, absolutely. It was dramatic. And it's why I
Yeah.
quit it's why I quit journalism. I got out of it because I found like there was no place to go to. So I was the same with you. And it was, we were held accountable. If we were going to interview, it didn't matter if it was a Republican or a Democrat, we had to be
Yeah.
incredibly objective. And if they were spouting information back in your face as a reporter, it was your job and your duty
Yeah.
to push back and to follow up with questions that would, counter their false narrative of what was happening, whether it's in the legislature, back in California or in Michigan. And, the newsrooms would celebrate it when you did that. I remember when Rick Snyder was governor and Republican, but we would ask him very difficult questions.
Yep.
And after those interviews, and these would be live interviews, the newsroom would erupt in applause. They good for holding him accountable. And it's like,
Same here. Same
and then
here.
and then Gretchen Whitmer becomes governor, and I would do the same thing. And the animosity from the journalists in the newsroom and the pushback, you got to be nicer. You've got to be friendlier to her. She's doing the best she can. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because I have data here that shows she's doing the exact opposite of what she should be doing. She's not cooperating with anybody. And we're talking about 2020 here, when this
Yep.
all reared its ugly head. And doing my job suddenly became, like you experience, a bad thing to do. And
We
I was
experienced the same
spec-
exact thing. It's
yes.
wild. It
Well, we were in the same state. We saw the
well,
same
we were
thing, trying to cover this
Governor
governor at the
Snyder.
time.
Sorry to interrupt. Governor Snyder, I challenged him in a live news conference in Flint over the water crisis, and I was tough, and he took it. He gave it back to me. Governor Whitmer, I interviewed her once, and after that, I think I was put on a list. I was never allowed to interview her again. But at least Governor Snyder, he could take it, and he gave it back to he. It was a give and take. Whitmer, she cannot take it.
No, this is the difference between what the Democratic Party has become. They are, if you go against them, you are now, anathema. You are no longer allowed to be invited to these events or whatever it is. And not only that, they were not going to come on your news program. It was punishment to you. And roles have been reversed, and now it's admitted. I mean, I'm telling you, these program directors, these news directors, they say, listen, and specifically, I was told this not long ago, a few months ago. We have to maintain access to all these powerful people. So you need to be nice to them and be more democratic friendly. And it wasn't just management. It was the colleagues, some of them. I have friends I still respect and whatnot, and colleagues I respect, but a large portion of them, surprisingly, would go behind my back and complain, so he needs to be more Democratic Party friendly. I'm like, that's not our job, you partisans, but that's what they were doing. And don't push back. And I was told specifically, stop. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm going off on different things here, but when I left
Yeah.
journalism in 2021, it was because it was so corrupt. We weren't
Yep.
allowed to perform in journalism. We weren't. And so I went into talk radio, opinion, news analysis type of thing. And I would try to bracket up with these arguments with strong data and evidence and those types of things. I
Yeah.
was told, stop doing that. Stop sharing your opinion. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. Oh, so you want me to do news now? I'll do news. I can be objective. No, we don't want that either. What do you want? We want access to these power brokers. So just be nice, be friendly, and don't push back. Stop caring about the issues. I'm like, this is, where do you go? Well, we do what Dave Bondy did. You become independent and you try to get back and engage all those. Listen, Dave, you know this. Millions and millions of people have been feeling like they no longer have a voice because they can't watch a newscast or listen to a radio station or read a newspaper, and no one will pay attention to their perspective on or their worldview when it comes to politics. Everyone has gone nuts. So now you, me, and others like us are going out there on these platforms, and now people again have a voice. They're not going crazy. There are millions of people like us who think the way we do, and there's legitimate and logical reasons for it.
I've seen several segments, CNN, MSNBC, where some analysts have thrown it back at the network saying legacy media dying. And was this vote, this Trump dominant vote, was this also a referendum on the media? Maybe the media, is it a changing of the tide with the trust? I privately predicted that Harris was going to eke out a victory because I didn't think people would see through the media BS, but apparently they did. And I
Yeah.
talked to a man yesterday from Virginia, Puerto Rican descent. He said, what matters to me is, the pocketbook. And he was offended at the media on all the things they were saying. So is the tide turning, you think?
I think it is. I think, eventually the truth comes out. And I think this election was, one example of that. People are so sick of this narrative. I mean, look at this last election. Kamala Harris and the media did not hold her to account like they should have, but she wouldn't do an interview and answer
No.
any of these questions in any legitimate way. She had these, bumper sticker slogans that she would answer that had no, relevance to the question being asked, and then they would let it slide, and then
Right.
she was rarely available, and then she would lie. She would say Donald Trump is Hitler, and while Donald Trump at the same time is one of the most pro-Israel presidents we've ever had, and he supported the Jews in
Yeah.
Israel love Donald Trump.
Yeah.
They hate Adolf Hitler. So that should be, eye-opening enough to realize, to let the American people realize they are lying through their teeth. And they called John McCain Hitler. They called Mitt Romney Hitler. It was all a ruse to deceive the public so they would get their votes, demonize their political opponent. So I think people are seeing through that now going, no, no, we don't believe this anymore. You're lying to us and it's shameful what you're doing. And, Project 2025, this other, red herring argument that Donald Trump wrote this authoritarian playbook in order to, have no unchecked power as president of the United States, which, by the way, he didn't. He didn't have a part in that. And that is true. I've talked to the author of Project 2025 on a number of occasions. They wrote it, but also, which is true, is that the whole premise of Project 2025 is to decentralize power. It takes away authoritarianism type of tendencies. It's a
Yes.
push against cultural Marxism. And if these people would read it, they would understand, okay, this is exact opposite of what Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and the Democrats are telling me what Project 2025 is. I talked to somebody yesterday. He still believes, oh, I hope Trump doesn't implement Project 2025. Do you know what it is? Yeah,
No.
it's an unchecked power. No, it's not. It's none of
But
that. So
CNN,
we've been lied to, and I do
MSNBC,
think people are waking up to it.
yeah, CNN, MSNBC, Fox never even delved into that. They didn't. It's but I'm glad it went the way it went. The future, like I said, the station I used to work at, there's fears they're going to shut down their news department, and it's sad that people may lose their jobs. But what is corporate media? Are they going to adjust? Do you think this is a wake up call to the executives because they're
Hmm.
losing bleeding money left and right?
Yeah, you got to wonder what's the whole purpose of business is to make a profit. And right now, I think there. So let's take, you mentioned corporate media. Yeah, advertisers are pulling away, and some of the reaction to that is wrong. Like what my former station is doing now is trying to make their interviews far less intriguing and more
Mhm.
palatable to Democrats, as if that's going to bring back the advertisers, and it's just doing just the opposite.
Yeah.
But corporations in general, I think they're opening up too. That listen, these mandates like DEI, type of mandated training programs to tell white people in your organization that they're inherently racist and there's nothing they can do about it, and putting white people in the organization against black people, and that's not good for business, and it's not good for morale for either any of the groups in there, because now you think your colleague hates you for some reason. None of it is working, and I think these corporations are waking up. Okay, how did this begin? Who started this? It was these far left democratic socialists who are
Mhm.
implementing what they're realizing now. This actually doesn't combat racism. What it does is it pits people against each other. Who came up with this idea? Oh, Marxist professors
Mhm.
back in the 1980s. Derek Bell kind of started theorizing that this is the way to do things, and he was a Marxist. Maybe this isn't good for the United States of America. So a lot of these corporations are pulling away from that. And I do think they're going to start advertising more with people who are willing to speak on issues from a conservative perspective, because I think they're starting to realize conservatives are not. That's not the label I was told it meant, or that label doesn't mean what I was told. Like the definition doesn't match the reality. And I
Yeah.
think people are slowly waking up to this, but again, it's like a slow trickle of the truth getting out, and
Yeah.
it's hard. Self-confrontation is a very difficult thing to do for anybody. Yeah, admitting your mistakes, but we have to do that if we're going to heal properly and unite properly as a country. That those who have been deceived have to admit they've been deceived, and those who are doing the deceiving need to admit they're doing the deceiving and turn around. And I would say the media is one of the biggest propagators of lies. They are, to me, the news media, the way it has become in modern times, is the biggest divider in this nation, and they are the biggest tool of election interference that I've ever seen in my lifetime. You expect it from politicians, but you don't expect it from journalists, and they're the problem, unfortunately.
Sad. It's sad. Well, I thank you for giving me the time. One more time, your website so people can check you out.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. It's tomjordanlive.com.
Okay. I'll put a link to that in this video as well. Always the best. I'd love to be on your show if you ever have time and bring you back on. I'm really glad. And I know it was tough doing what you're doing. It was tough for me. There's lots of obstacles against independent, but it's an honor to talk to you.
Honored to talk to you, Dave, and you're welcome on my program anytime. And I really respect what you're doing, Dave. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.